After a nearly 16-hour standoff, Indian commandos are gaining ground in their effort to rescue hundreds of hostages.
Terrorism is not a local problem anymore. I mean, the world is one village when it comes to terrorism.
A number of attackers working across multiple targets simultaneously, resulting in a high death count.
The problems that we have in India are no different from the rest of the world. There are mega problems.
The bombing occurred around 7 p.m. at the German bakery restaurant, which was packed with tourists and foreigners.
Clash of cultures, of religions, and we just unfortunately seem to be sitting in a spot where all this passed through.
Meanwhile, police have arrested 17 activists and detained 3 others in connection with the attack.
The security condition in the country, or the security scenario today, is really acute.
Improvised explosive devices detonated in 7 different locations. They targeted trains, transit stations. More than 200 people were killed.
With more than 1.1 billion people, India is host to 15% of the world's population. Despite a rising middle class, a strong caste system still prevails within the country. Host to 7 of the world's major religions, India remains a focal point for political, social, and ideological unrest.
When you look at the borders, the land borders, the coastline, you realize that actually India sits in an epicenter of all the ingredients which are required for terrorism to flourish. Whether it's in terms of the geographical size, the wide range of beliefs, the socio-economic issues, the poverty lines or near deprivation in many of the countries which are bordering us. And I think it's also time for people who want to understand this problem to stop treating India as one country, because it's not really one country per se, it's a subcontinent. So just because events happen in one part of the nation does not mean the entire nation is under the grips of terrorism.
I think the genesis of this goes back to cultural, socio-economic issues. Now, India is sort of in a crucible of, I'd say, a transition of various types of cultures, various types of economic models. Obviously, this leads to a certain amount of discomfort and unrest.
I think socio-economic difference between classes has always been there in India, and it's gradually tapering away, and hopefully in a few decades it will be much better in terms of equity as it is now. The voicing of that dissent through violent means is something that is suddenly sort of caught up, and to my mind it's fundamental that when you have less resources and more people contending for the same resources, and often from very different viewpoints, I think the manifestation of that dissent is bound to happen. What's happened in the last, I would say about 2-3 years, is that manifestation has become in a much more vociferous and violent way.
My sense is the need for security is a global mega trend. So what we face here is probably a blown up version of what is prevalent all over the world. It's just our geopolitical situation here that accentuates terrorist strikes, and the need for security is obviously manifold.
I think 3 or 4 ingredients have come together. One is that there has been a unification of many of these terror groups. They're working together very closely. So you have different elements who are not necessarily even from the same beliefs or the same causes, now working together.
Among the criminals and antisocial elements, they have acquired an understanding of the vulnerability of the society due to the long neglect of the police force. The police force has always considered a non-planned expenditure. And the second thing that happened is the fact that the extensive use of technology by criminals now, you see.
Terrorists are also using the same technology which is available to common man. And you had to build in processes and systems where we are one step ahead of them. There are technologies like face recognition and all that which are becoming available now. So those technologies where you can identify face in a crowd and all that are being used. Fast scanning of images when people enter the passport sections and all, wherever they go through a checkpoint. And those technologies are being looked at, and there are many others, monitoring phone calls and all. So we are trying to use maximum use of latest technologies and latest security systems.
Technology was at the forefront during the 2010 e-government conference. Civic leaders witnessed the latest advancements offered by private enterprise.
What the government of Rajasthan especially, where the e-governance conference is being held, they have done so many things, and now I was really happy to know that some steps are being taken in this direction also. Whereas I hope that our governments will be able to take help from them to fight terrorism, which is one of the big problems today.
Technology can really be a very, very key input in augmenting our security scenario in the state. And government is utilizing all what we call the technical inputs which are available through technologies to take care of the law and order, to take care of the insurgency, to take care of the infiltration of elements from across the border and all those things.
The provision of security personnel is the second largest industry in India after manufacturing. So quite clearly there is a realization that you need far, far more bodies than just those in uniform. And so this public and private participation in addressing the security issues is another major, I think, shift that's happened in the last few months.
Today, the ratio of policemen to the population of Delhi is 44 to 10,000. For every 10,000 Delhiites, there are 44 policemen, and the national average is only 15.
And it is a real challenge for us to now guard our public sector undertakings, private sector undertakings, and the demands are now overwhelming. There are so many demands for security, even in areas where we didn't think that we were required. For example, demands are coming in from hospitals, from hotels, from schools. Everybody seems to be in urgent need of security.
Some of the shortcomings can only be resolved if more resources are made available and the police forces of the states are developed in that particular fashion, so that they are as well trained and as well equipped to handle problems which the CRPF is required to do, you see.
The last 5 years, we have got now all kinds of terrorist problems in the urban area, in the rural area, the Maoist attack in the rural areas. So all public sector undertakings which are coming up in the remote areas, rural areas, which were considered normally very peaceful, have all now become highly vulnerable. So to that extent, our hands are absolutely full and the demand is too much, and we are trying to keep pace with the whole thing.
We have to define the shortcomings and taking action to bridge that gap, make our men more skilled, make our men more capable so that they are able to handle the challenges.
The government and the state, there is a realization that security has to be all-encompassing, not just in terms of the tools and technologies, but also in terms of participation.
When you look at it from that perspective, you realize that there has to be a substantial growth in strength of the police before they can take on, I mean, 8%, 9% growth will become meaningless if you do not have the sense of security. I mean, if you can't go out in the night and if you can't go for a movie and your daughter is vulnerable, then that 9% growth is meaningless.
Our top concern is to provide foolproof security. And for that, we keep on doing regular security audits. Something which was absolutely acceptable and foolproof maybe 5 years ago is not foolproof today. And as I said earlier, some of our units which were considered to be in very peaceful areas, not important, have suddenly all become very, very important for us.
Security is fundamental. I mean, whether you want investments to come in, you look at any industry, outsourcing, tourism, or just the sheer economic safety of a city. or of a country is largely dependent on the security that is provided to the people who are inhabiting that place. So this is clearly not a question of opportunity. This is something that just has to be done.
By providing a safe urban environment, city officials are able to attract more residents and more businesses, therefore fueling economic prosperity. With the current budget constraints, cities are being challenged by the current number of threats, but also dealing with older technology. The current threats require technology that allows them to not only detect the events, but also act quickly to resolve those incidents.
Since 2003, more than 600 people have been killed. The deadliest attack, you see pictures here, happened in July 2006.
Why does a terrorist carry out a terror strike? He doesn't do it to kill people, because if you look at the number of people that they managed to kill, even in Mumbai, it's 165, 168 people. In terms of absolute numbers, you lose that many. You lose about 250 people in India per day committing suicide. But it has a very strong psychological impact. It has an impact which forces people to cancel business deals. It has impacts of people cancelling their vacation into India. It has huge impacts in every different shape and form, and which is the aim of the terrorists.
Shehzad, the terrorist arrested recently, reportedly told the Delhi police that the module is at work in Pune and that its mission is to kill as many foreigners and create panic in the country.
The anti-national elements or the terrorist elements or the Naxal elements or the Maoist elements, they only want news. And wherever there is a crowd or wherever there is something which is happening with the government and they can attack that and destroy it, it creates news.
So when you have a city that is traumatized by a bomb blast and there is presence of police, there is presence of checkpoints, there is presence of what can be termed as reactive steps, it has a very strong psychological impact on the people who start believing that yes, we are in charge, they are on the run, not us. And I think that's a very important step. You can't throw that away, the importance of that step, because it seems very trivial to say that, you know, after the bomb blast you have high security in hotels, but what were you doing before? Now the challenge really is that if I'm a terrorist and I'm designing my strategy, I'm not going to attack the strong points. So it doesn't matter how many points you strengthen, because you can't strengthen everything. You can't be on high alert all the time.
The availability of technology on a large scale has made the security scenario that much more difficult to handle, you see. Take, for instance, the case of use of chemical explosives and RDX, use of remote control. The attack which took place in Bombay, the attackers had extensive training in the use of explosives, extensive training in the use of grenades, extensive training in navigation. You know, so that kind of technology which is coming in, cyber crime, we are coming across large chunks of cyber crime. Cyber forensics is being used in a very big way to deal with it, you see. But the use of technology by criminals is now becoming more and more widespread, which is making our task that much more difficult, you know.
It is the effort of every society and every community to be proactive and anticipative. However, that anticipative action comes at a very high cost. Whether it's a search at an airport, whether it's frisking of baggage, whether it's the delays that are caused. And I'm not talking about individual harassment. I'm talking about the socio-economic damage that is caused. For every hour of delay in, say, an airport like Delhi, you're spending literally billions of dollars if you accumulate it over the years. So in many ways, every society has to take a call and say, what is it that we want? Do we want to end up like a nation which spends 30 to 40% of its GDP on defense? Or do we want to be a nation which has a balance amongst people's ability to live life normally in certain degrees of safety? And I think this is really the critical trade-off that needs to be addressed.
The traditional approach to security has been what we call guns and guards. Now that's a very non-linear model when you look at tremendous scale and size of a country like India. It's only the intervention of technology which allows non-linear solutions. And that's exactly the position we are in, where we provide integrated approaches to security, leveraging technology. Now, the need for guns and guards will never go away, nor will the need for traditional intelligence. But we bring the two together for, I'd say, a much superior advanced response system or even a prevention system.
In a maturity of an attack, if you look at the 4 or 5 elements which are required to make a terrorist attack happen, whether it's in terms of a target, you need a target first, so you need a reconnaissance of the target, you need transportation to get to that place, you need firepower to effect that damage, you need logistics, a place to stay, you need communications to coordinate all of this. If you look at these 5 planets, and let's say an agency takes out one of the planets, the manifestation of that attack is hypothetical. It could have been a blast that could have killed hundreds of people, which has been stopped, but it won't make headlines anywhere because all you did was to pull out one of the cogs of the wheel. And so the challenge for establishment to put a scorecard against its proactive activity is that it's very difficult to predict it and it's impossible to talk about it. So to a large extent, I won't use an incident that has happened as the failure of proactive steps, because this is one that got away, but the ones that were caught is not something that is documented.
India's Home Ministry has initiated the National Intelligence Grid, or NAC Grid, which is mandated to link 21 different databases for the access of 10 security agencies.
The scope and the vision is basically to be able to connect all the discrete pieces of data or information point or datum points which are currently available, whether it's travel records or financial records or logistics or transportation.
All of this information is out there, but what was lacking was the ability to deliver it to the people who really needed to make decisions.
The problem is they exist in different silos and they had been created with different purposes. So an airline booking, for instance, is been created not from a terrorist perspective or not from an internal security perspective, it's from a travel perspective. Similarly, if you look at some of the government databases, then the electoral roll, the PAN card, they've all been produced for a certain reason.
One of the things I learned from working on this project at the Department of Justice was we brought people into a room and they had several aha moments. They said, I need this kind of information. And then you'd find out this information existed with another agency over here. They had no combined way to really share this information, and it became obvious. The one thing that they should have in common that they didn't was a common capability, a common network, a common platform.
Intelligence is information on which an analyst's experience has been added to tweak out intelligence from it. So in its raw form of information, you mix experience, you mix the ability to join dots, and that's a very, very analytical and a human-oriented function.
Technology allows you to go through databases, reconcile faces, names, transactions, to pinpoint where a strike could happen. And therefore the cost on a total cost of ownership basis significantly comes down.
The technology part can only zone you into certain areas that you can look at. It can crunch massive amounts of data and tweak out the necessary dots, but the joining of the dots still is the domain of intelligence experts.
What technology can allow you to do, if you go through that first step, that collection and fusion, it can speed up the process of getting this information.
To that extent, the NAT grid is not going to produce actionable intelligence. It's only going to facilitate production of intelligence.
If I could save you 2 minutes in a decision-making process, what kind of an advantage does that get you if you're responding to a fire, or to a terrorist attack, or to a crime in progress or robbery?
Intelligence agencies traditionally don't automatically share databases, and even more astounding, operate on varied and disparate communication levels. Technologies such as IPIX, Cisco's IP interoperability and collaboration system, integrates first responders during emergency scenarios and day-to-day operations.
I think the problem statement is quite common all over the world. Each response system operates on their own systems, their own databases, their own communication networks, and very infrequently do they talk to each other.
So in a typical environment, we have both police department and fire department be called to a scene. And when they get on site, they're unable to communicate with each other. They're both using different frequencies, different types of radios. They're not tied into the same channel.
The complexities of all of these disparate information systems, how do I get a piece of information from point A to point C to point D when I have to go traverse many different networks, many different systems?
Now with iPix, we're able to provide that ability to allow them now to communicate with each other no matter what type of media devices that they have. In addition to that, we could extend it beyond just the radios. We could bring it down to an IP phone. We could actually bring it to your mobile devices. So with iPix, we're now being able to broaden that means of communicating on a scene, so we could actually coordinate and effectively communicate with our first responders.
A series of personal and particularly brazen attacks brought death, destruction, and a sense of panic to Mumbai.
It began just after 9 o'clock on the evening of November the 26th, when the gunmen landed at the gateway of India in inflatable boats.
The battle between security forces and terrorists lasted 3 days.
It was a very tough thing to watch because I know a lot of people that work over in several of those police forces there, and to see what technology could have done. Technology doesn't take a bullet. Technology doesn't stop somebody from getting killed. What technology does is allow that person out there who is in the line of fire to make better decisions, to have better outcomes, and to protect the citizens of Mumbai in a much more effective way than the lack of technology gives them.
55 people were killed, including 5 railway employees. These are visuals from the closed-circuit television. On the platform, you can see 2 constables, one armed and one unarmed, there behind those pillars fighting back at the terrorists.
One of the lessons we've learned after 9/11, one of the lessons we learned after Katrina is our ability, we need an ability to project command and control, awareness, a common operating picture into an area. What the NERV vehicle does, the Networked Emergency Response Vehicle, allows us to do is bring a set of capabilities that would normally only be found in a fixed location like a building and an emergency operations center, to actually put those into a mobile environment, to drive that to a location, be able to connect either satellite through wireless or through some wired connection and operate anywhere, anytime, under any circumstances, and be able to project that command and control, that incident command, to be able to give you the access to data, the access to voice, the ability to collaborate with anybody. So really what that does is that breaks down the barriers, that breaks down the walls of the physical limitations that you used to have.
So well planned were the attacks, investigators say some of the gunmen pulled into Mumbai from the water in inflatable boats. Dozens of hostages were taken in the hotels, which led to a standoff with police.
The terrorist group Lashkar-e-Taiba, LET, they did the planning, came out of Pakistan, went over a period of days. Several different locations. They set hotels on fire. People were killed. You had a lot of these things going on. What a networked emergency response vehicle, a NERV does, it allows you to start connecting the dots and finding out how many are we dealing with. 1, are we dealing with 2? How many teams? 3, 4? We knew we were dealing with 6 people. 3 teams of 2 basically. Where are they at? What are they doing? It allows you to start bringing a comprehensive picture of what's happening. What it really does is allows people who don't have any other method of collecting information to now start collecting this in real time, which they have to do, connect the dots and say, where's our threat at? Are they here or did they just leave here? And now I need emergency medical services here, and I need my tactical units, or I need my armed people over here. Why? Because now I've been able to connect the dots and know that they're this location, not this location now.
तीनों छत के ऊपर 15 बंदे उतरे हैं हेलीकॉप्टर के जरिए। अच्छा, तो खिड़कियों से सामने से
Now what we've learned out of this is that you've really got to have these communication systems. You have to have the data systems. Why? Because we know the 6 terrorists had multiple phone conversations going on. We're using cell phones to communicate with their handlers back in Pakistan or other places. They were over there, they'd already reconnoitered the area, they'd done their preliminary reconnaissance, they take pictures, they had traveled in and out of the country, so we have travel records, we have potentially passports, visas, entry-exit documents. I mean, there's all sorts of information. Now we've got to start distilling it down and find out who's the real threat.
This is the reception and the lobby of the Hotel Trident. You will see those visuals there of two terrorists casually walking in, wielding their guns, their AK-47s in the next visual.
It gives you the ability to go out to a location, bring in voice, video, data, all into one location and make decisions where you need to be making them, which is at the spot of the incident and not trying to have somebody 100 miles away or even 50 feet away who can't see what's going on make decisions. So it really goes back to that decision-making process. It gives me all the tools I need to make my decisions where the incident is occurring.
Another national initiative is Safe State, a concept that combines a holistic approach to security, one that is built on a strong technological foundation.
Safe State is a very interesting framework that HCL has built out, which is, I'd say, a 1 to n scalable model, which could protect either a critical infrastructure or an entire state. It puts together various devices, be it a camera, be it a door frame detector or a scanner, brings it into a control room on which various applications reside to provide actionable intelligence. Not only is there actionable intelligence, but what we also focus very much is an integrated response system. The response system largely has a communication network and a linkage to what one needs to do should a type of event happen.
A bomb/explosive blast occurred at the German bakery in Pune district around 7:30 p.m. this evening.
Pune is an interesting case where two things happened. One was an object went undetected for a period of time.
It appears that an unattended package was noticed in the German bakery by one of the waiters who apparently went and attempted to open the package when the blast took place.
The second was that here again the response system took a little longer than it should have taken.
Meanwhile, the Home Ministry has sent an advisory to all states asking people not to touch unclaimed objects and inform about their presence to the nearest police station.
If you think about it, in the old days, it would be hard to monitor an environment with video cameras. In here, I have 4 cameras, maybe 8 cameras. Maybe one person can still keep an eye on those. But once you have a large number of cameras, let's say hundreds of thousands of cameras, that could be impossible to monitor.
Normally a person, when they look at, like, say, a video wall, your brain just can't process all of these multiple streams of information coming in and make that decision, right? It's back to that decision-making loop. So it takes much longer because you might miss an incident up here. So one of the things we've learned is to apply technology deliberately and specifically, and not indiscriminately, but apply it to a problem so that we can improve the process of decision-making.
Now we have softwares that detect a left luggage or left packages. Should our concept of safe state have been implemented in this particular area, the undetected object would have been detected much quicker.
When we bring video analytics into the picture, now we have intelligence that is monitoring each camera for specific alerts. Those alerts vary. It can be a tripwire crossing. Maybe you can have a perimeter, a visual perimeter fence around your environment and trigger alarms when somebody crosses it. It can translate into an object left behind for specific transportation areas that can certainly trigger an alarm, or maybe people loitering around the building, etc. So those alarms can be very diverse.
It's a combination of surveillance cameras of very high definition linked up to very advanced softwares that detect aberrations in behaviors. One could time how long one could stay away from a particular object. It would trigger an alarm, it would go into a command control system. If action wasn't taken, it would escalate, go up to decision points. So all this happens very quickly.
Yeah, there is some suspicious movement in the garden area. Can you go and check? Yeah, he's in white shirt and he's dropping some bag there. I'm sending you the snapshot on your PDA. Just have a look and see. He's just walking away. He has left the bag there. Please run, check the bag.
This is a great opportunity, a great blend between technology deliberately applied to a specific problem of safety and security in a physical environment, a building, a gate, a guard, something. And what we want to do is improve their capability, improve the outcomes so that no bad guys get in, so that no bad things get out.
Technology is going to help us in a big way, and as I said that we are already using a lot of technology for the physical security and access control, like the biometric system, a smart card system for access control, CCTV and their controls are all installed there. So to provide foolproof security now, we find that technology is a huge enabler.
The point is this, that the other side must understand one thing very clearly, that there will be a response and there will be an effective response. The moment they understand that aspect of this thing, that there will be a response and there will be an effective, determined response, then they start thinking and exploring other alternatives, and that's what we want them to do.
This country has a history of assimilating. So we do get some bumps on the way, but over a period of time there's a huge degree of assimilation. It starts from our history of assimilating different cultures and religions to almost 2,000 years ago. My sense is we will endure, but there will be bumps on the way.